Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The ongoing high-profile visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to China, his first as Prime Minister, has received a lot of attention and raised a lot of hopes about improving the ties between the two countries. Prime Minister Modi, who has already had meetings and talks with both President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Li, has admitted that the relationship between the two countries in the past decades has been complex. However, the joint statement issued today after a meeting with Prime Minister Li is an elaborate statement of intent to vastly improve the ties. Crucial issues like the border problems and other issues of strategic concerns, skewed bilateral trade, among a host of other issues have been addressed. The two countries have also pledged to play a major role in international affairs. Today we will look at the visit of Prime Minister Modi and discuss what have been the takeaways from it and whether there have been any substantial achievements in this visit. To discuss this, I have with me Rajiv Sikri, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Major General Ashok Mehta, Security Analyst, Mohan Guruswamy, an economist and an analyst on China, Siddharth Varadarajan, Senior Journalist and Founding Editor of the Wire.in, and on the phone line from Beijing is Atul Aneja, Associate Editor of The Hindu and its China correspondent. Welcome to all of you. Atul, I would like to come to you first. The atmospherics, what we are witnessing on television here for the last 2 days seems to be quite terrific. At the end of the meeting, all those meetings, a joint statement has been issued. So, what is your perception about what has happened in the last 2 days?
Well, there are two elements. One, Girish, is the optics of it. We have seen this style of Mr. Modi's functioning in other countries, and we find the same thing with Chinese characteristics as well in his visits to Xi'an and now to Beijing before he heads for Shanghai tomorrow. But optics apart, I think this visit is different from others. In the institutional framework which has been broadened so much more on the premise of earlier visits by Dr. Manmohan Singh and thereafter. So it's broadened out much more.
Atul,
but more importantly,
Atul, I think there is some problem with the audio there. I'll just come back to you in a minute. Once we'll fix that up. Mr. Sikri?
Yeah.
Is it the optics, as Atul was talking about, is quite, has been quite good. But you think that the joint statement contains something which is substantial?
Look, this is a work in progress. It's a continuation of what happened in September last year. And I think Mr. Modi wants to engage with the Chinese leadership at frequent intervals. This is an agreement which has been reflected now in the joint statement also, because he feels, I think, that greater dialogue, more frequent dialogue at this level, more people-to-people exchanges, more economic involvement would help in removing some of the mistrust.
It is not just Prime Minister Modi. Even the other side seems to be equally keen to have this kind of more frequent exchanges.
Because they have an interest also in seeing that India does not gravitate too much to the other side, towards the Americans, the Japanese and so forth. And from the joint statement, a cursory an examination of that leads me to believe that on the border there has been some movement, not an early settlement, but saying, look, we must maintain peace and tranquility on the border for the relations to progress. There is, for the first time in many years now, a reference to a three-stage process.
Right.
There is a talk about building on the agreements and understandings already reached. And there's talk of an early settlement and a political settlement.
There is political settlement as soon as possible. That is the word which is being used there. Those are the words. Atul, can you hear me now?
Yeah, very much, Girish.
Okay, Atul, you please continue. You're talking about the optics aspect of it, and then you're saying what.
Yeah. What I was saying was that there is a new institutional framework, but more importantly, I see a subaltern element in this joint statement, in the sense that you're moving away from center-to-center relationship, and you're involving your states and cities and businesses at the grassroots in a much more integrated with their counterparts in China. So, you're setting up a bottom-up sort of a dynamic that will become one of the drivers, or seems to has the potential of becoming one of the major drivers of foreign policy with China. So, this element of engaging people to people, businesses, etc., and the economies, which is Mr. Modi's focus in any case, is something novel and new. And I see this not being reflected in any other visit to the level it has been taken forward, because we had India-China Forum of State Provincial Leaders today. So you are integrating
and three chief ministers.
Tier 2 level. You're getting beyond just your big corporate honchos, but you're going to Sichuan, you're going to small businesses probably in Karnataka, which have again become sister states today. So I see this percolating down to a much deeper and stronger people-to-people contact in an economic sense. And along with that is also, maybe in response to a later question, I'll respond to that, but this Buddhism element, the cultural element, you want to get people together on a common platform and leverage that for your business. So It's not culture as an isolated way, but culture as an integrated element of your foreign policy, which will sort of, in a way, buttress your other thrusts at a higher level.
Okay, Atul, what about the border issue? Mr. Sikri was talking about some new elements having been introduced as far as the joint statement is concerned. Do you see anything new there? Do you see any forward movement on that?
No, there are two elements of it. When it comes to maintaining peace and tranquility and calm on the borders, to me, that is the focus. I mean, you will hem in more confidence-building measures, because none of the two sides want any flare-up or an aggravation of the situation on the borders. They are absolutely clear about that. When it comes to the actual settlement of the boundary question, I think that's a painstaking. You've separated. What you have done is you've insulated the border dispute from your other areas of engagement. And, that firewall between the two has been strengthened today. But it is a time, because the sense I've been getting both from the Indian and the Chinese side is that, look, that is a time-consuming process, and the special representative dialogue will continue on that. We are making progress, but that is still far away. But the focus will be on ensuring CBMs and that there are no flare-ups. And both sides today, when I was at the Great Hall of the People where this ceremony took place, I mean, there was a sense of great relief that we haven't had a border flare-up while Mr. Modi has been over here.
Okay.
And one of the reasons attributed to that is the power changes within China, where President Xi is consolidating, and some of the hardliners from institutions in the military, etc., are being sort of, it's a big churning which is going on. And partly what we see, not a flare-up on the borders, may be linked to the internal changes which are taking place in a very dynamic way in China.
Okay. Please stay on, Atul. I'll come back to you, Mohan. How do you look at this? He was talking about the border thing. He's saying that Atul doesn't seem to be as excited because, if you go by what Mr. Sikri said and the joint statement itself, talking of a political settlement of the border question, and it's also, talking about a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution as early as possible.
No, he's really talking about defining a line of control.
Exactly.
Which is undefined right now because our lines overlap. So this is the first step.
In fact, the first Prime Minister made it very clear
that this is important, that we can't have
the line of actual clarification on the line of actual control is necessary.
It is defined at the local level as where it actually runs. Because there are huge overlaps right now. And that leads to tension because of what happened in Depsang and other places where you tail each other and, sometimes there could be tensions because of that. So he wants that to be eliminated. So let's have a line.
You think this is the first time that it's come out like this?
I think it's come out he's understood the issue very simply and put it across very forcefully. And, he says, let's sort this out so that we don't have this accidental conflict situation building up. I think it's very good. There's a territorial issue which both sides have agreed to keep aside. Their claim on Arunachal Pradesh and our claim on Aksai Chin. Let's keep it aside. We can't solve it in our lifetimes. In our political systems being what they are, we can't solve it. So that has been decided to keep it aside. We, on the other hand, the Chinese at various times offered us the status quo agreement. That is, you stay where you are, we stay where we are. But our political system cannot accept it. So the Chinese, I think, realize this and therefore say that, look, let's settle on a line of control. And that is where there are difficulties. Because this actually has to be done by the military people who are on the ground and who will then can decide that this is where we've been, the terrain suits us, suits them, and, you have to give and take a little bit and come. But this is driven by the diplomacy, which is not really aware of the situation on the ground. So I think, so he's made a move, and therefore the military-to-military link which he established is significant. That is, I think, very important.
Very important. General Mehta?
No,
this LAC thing, you think that's important? You think that's going to...
We've got it wrong. Let me make 3 or 4 points. First, that there is no satisfaction on India's core concerns. And the big thing that has happened is, which has been stated by 1 or 2 speakers, is that not for the first time, but more written in stone now, is the shift in emphasis from the border to economic, cultural and people.
Right.
So this is more visible, more institutionalized. Now, as far as the border is concerned...
Isn't it a welcome thing?
No. There's nothing, no change on the border. There is no mention of line of actual control.
Prime Minister mentioned that.
No.
Prime Minister mentioned it.
Nothing is in the joint statement. Let me tell you...
The joint statement talks about a 3-stage process for the settlement of the boundary question.
That 3-stage process has got nothing to do with the line of actual... That was a separate process which was started during Jaswant Singh's time in 2000. And it petered out because the Chinese refused to exchange maps.
So that has been revived now?
No, it has not been revived.
He has made it a condition that you must set this up and define this very clearly now.
No.
Because this is a sensitive issue.
No. Our Prime Minister, when Xi Jinping came last year, he said that let us define the line of actual control. But there has been no forward movement on that.
Today Prime Minister Modi has repeated it.
You see,
has said that.
There's nothing in...
Reaffirm the commitment to abide by the 3-stage process.
That 3-stage process has got nothing to do with the line of actual control.
So
line of actual control is the 3-stage process is the package deal. And this has got nothing to do with the line of...
So there has been no movement as far as there is concerned.
Absolutely no movement on the line of actual control.
Siddharth, how do you look at this? Do you see a movement forward as some of my panelists?
I'd like to make... I'd like to make 2 or 3 points on this. I think there's a political and a military aspect, if we stick to the boundary issue to begin with. It's clear that on the military side, even though the number of border posts where meetings will take place is going to be increased, the Chinese continue to be reticent about accepting the Indian demand or request for clarifying the LAC as a matter of urgency. So the uncertainty about where the line lies, which is essentially the main contributing factor to recurring incursions, which become a big news event, I'm afraid that's going to carry on. On the positive side, Jaishankar said that the 2 leaderships will monitor what's happening on the border more closely. So I think there is a recognition at the political level that these incidents create unnecessary political difficulties. They cast a shadow over what is otherwise a positive trajectory. And that political intervention is needed to nip any incident on the LAC in the bud. So I think I would put that down to the plus side. I don't see, quite frankly, any forward movement as far as resolution of the... Yeah, go ahead.
Siddharth, the fact that the Prime Minister Modi, made it, openly he made this comment saying that LAC is something which needs clarification. This is something which needs to be done. It's of great importance. The fact that he was, he was in China, standing there along with the Prime Minister of China and saying this, does it not have any significance?
No, undoubtedly. This is an old stand of India. We've always said this, but the Prime Minister said this in the presence of Li Keqiang. He repeated it, I would say, more forcefully in his speech to the students of Tsinghua University, where he made a number of other very forceful points.
Yes.
The problem really is that the boundary settlement is really quite distant. I think Yes, there is a reference to the three-stage process. In the last joint statement last year, there was talk, there was reiteration of the policies and
we will leave
parameters that were agreed to.
We will leave that aside.
But I think that's still some distance away.
Siddharth, we'll leave that aside. Now, other things, as far as the economic issues are concerned, and also very significantly, India and China both talking about being global players.
No, I think that element of the joint statement marks a very definite step forward. You will recall that when President Obama and President Xi signed a declaration on climate change, for example, there was all this talk about how China and India may perhaps no longer be able to cooperate on a vital issue like climate change. The separate statement issued on climate change and all the other statements that the two leaders have made in the joint statement on global issues underlines the fact that there are plenty of areas of cooperation that India and China are going to come together on at the global level.
Right.
So I think that this is another very positive takeaway, even if I feel at the regional level, when it comes to some of the geopolitical implications of Asian connectivity, it's very clear that India and China are dancing around each other's projects, each other's concerns.
Right.
I would just flag that as one area where I would personally have liked to have seen a little bit more forward movement.
In fact,
One
Belt, One Road initiative, or
exactly.
India's plans and reservations on this.
Right.
There is one ironic point. This joint cooperation on the multilateral fora, on WTO, non-proliferation.
G20.
The Chinese are the biggest proliferators, and we are going to cooperate on non-proliferation.
Mr. Sikri. When Siddharth talks about, dancing around certain issues, one of the major issues of concern when recently the Chinese president was in Pakistan, that announcement of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, you think those issues don't get reflected in the joint statement, but you think that this is something which the Prime Minister must have told the Chinese leaders about the concerns as far as India are concerned?
I think so. He talked about it in his press statement. He talked about, I discussed some of our regional concerns.
Right.
That has to include Pakistan. And he also made a very significant point that I suggested, stress the need for China to reconsider its approach on some of the issues. It should take a more strategic and long-term perspective.
Absolutely.
And that they were responsive on this matter. And this gets into the joint statement also by talking about the Asian century, the historical perspective, that develop in a mutually supportive manner and taking into account mutual sensitivities and concerns. All that is intended to send a message, look, there's a lot more we can do together and we should be doing it, but let us maintain peace and tranquility on the border, even if we cannot settle it. Because if that is maintained, then we can move forward.
Absolutely. Atul, some of these issues which have come up in the joint statement, how significant are these? When you sitting in Beijing, how do you look at that? Especially the two countries talking of a global partnership.
You see, the perspectives are very different. From here, it is very clear that after you had the US rebalance strategy or the Asia pivot and accumulation of about 60% of US forces under the Pacific Command, now the Chinese are responding to that. One is in the military way, which is one track. The other is on the economic side, where they want alternative to the TPP and the road and the Belt and the Road initiative. They dropped that one belt, one road. Now they call it the Belt and the Road initiative. Now that itself has a framework of Eurasia. It is looking from the Koreas to Germany.
Right.
That this is the bandwidth of engagement and integration of the economy. So the geopolitical construct for the Chinese is Eurasia, and where India fits in and where Pakistan fits in. Now you're looking from that vantage point over here. So you are going to build infrastructure, etc., to integrate all these economies, where everybody plays a supplemental role. But they are also very open that this is a conceptual stage. You need to talk it out and flesh it out. If you have an idea, any ideas, we'll do it. With the Russians, this process has gone a very, very long way forward. So that's where we are not part. We have not bitten into this Belt and Road initiative. What we are doing is we are looking at things bilaterally. For example, today Jaishankar talked about the BCIM, corridor, economic corridor.
Right.
Now, that he says was something which was discussed on a bilateral platform, whereas the Chinese see that as part of the Belt and the Road Initiative, as they do the Pakistan-China corridor. So, see, there is no alignment as of now in terms of concepts. And I believe this is what was one of the topics which was taken up yesterday, that if India has concerns regarding security issues, so-called China's rise, etc., then talk to us directly instead of going to others, hinting that, you don't have to go to the Japanese and Americans to discuss about this. You talk to us straight.
Okay.
So, I mean, there is, in terms
so
of
there has been certain...
in terms of geopolitical construct, you're not there. But that is why you're focusing on the common areas, which is the economy and all. You've carved out a corridor of cooperation, and you're going to go intensely into that and take it up from there. That seems to be my sense over here. And you're not at the stage of aligning grand strategies.
Okay. Mohan?
I think, the rise of Asia, which is now the focus, really depends on integrating the Indian and Chinese markets, because this is the world's second largest economy and the third largest economy here. So, and the expansion of the middle class the next 30, 40 years is going to take place in India. So 180 million new families are going to come into the middle class. So there's a huge Indian market coming up. And India needs large capital resources to cater to this huge middle class which is rising, and also to modernize India. The infrastructure modernization cost itself is about 750 billion. And where are you going to get the money? So China happens to be the country with $4.5 trillion sitting in American reserves where it doesn't earn any money. And China has the ability
to... So our aim is to get as much as possible.
To get as much as possible, you get investment, so China will get returns. You see,
that integration which you're talking about.
Let me complete. As societies age, they need returns on investment. Like Japan needs return on investment. Germany needs return on investment. So China is aging now, moving to the process where the dependency ratio within China will turn completely adverse in the next 20 years. So they need returns coming from their overseas investment.
So it's in their own interest also to invest.
It's also in their own interest. It's also for us to realize that Chinese investment in India is not a security threat. Building a railway line or building a port is not imperil your security.
Okay, when you're saying when you're saying this, is this something which has crept into the minds of the Indian policy makers, Indian strategic?
I think Prime Minister Modi understands this well. He's got a good instinct for business. He's got a good instinct for where economic interests
So has that been taken forward in this visit?
So he is basically interested in seeing that this so-called border question, which raises so much of heat here, without people really knowing how this problem arose, why it arose, that it remains dormant. So therefore, the definition of that LAC becomes assumed some significance. Otherwise, he's more focused on the economic aspects of it, the benefits we can get to China, how we can integrate. Now, this Kunming-Calcutta Railroad is integrating the two markets together.
So, are you saying that all this has been taken care of? There has been certain movement forward on
There has been movement forward because, there have been exchange of people, ideas going on for the last 3 months. I was also part of this process.
You're also part of it.
So, this has been going on.
Okay.
So, this Kunming-Calcutta link, which right now is pretty recessed, is going to now assume some importance because that will be the southern Trans-Asia railway link.
In a hurry.
Okay, Mr. Sikri?
No, I don't see the Kunming-Calcutta link happening in a hurry because the first thing is that we have to integrate the northeastern states with the rest of India before letting the Chinese in.
Okay,
I don't see that.
No, Mr. Sikri, my question, another question.
It's only a railroad.
After this, after this visit, you think, when Obama was in India, there was a lot of talk about how Chinese would be very concerned about what's happening between India and in the US. Now you think Washington would be concerned about what is happening between India and China?
No, but this is part of Mr. Modi's strategy that you engage everyone and let not any partner take you for granted, that you are going to play all sides, just as the Americans talk to the Chinese, they talk to the Russians, whoever it is.
Pakistanis.
Yeah, so we are trying to do the same, that wherever there is mutual benefit, we'll do it. And I think the point which was made earlier on, that by economic engagement, people-to-people engagement, state-level engagement, you want to create over time an atmosphere of greater trust, confidence among people.
No, in fact, Prime Minister Modi said that very clearly today, that, Indians and Chinese don't understand each other.
Yeah, that is true.
No, there is a need for understanding. General Mehta? You think all these other measures, leaving the border issue aside, you think that we have moved forward somewhere?
Well, I would think so. I would think so that the government has now said, put the border issue away and let's focus on that $4 trillion reserve that the Chinese have. But one other concern that we have is our trade deficit.
Exactly.
Our trade deficit since 2007 is $170 billion.
No, that has also been addressed.
Yes, it has been addressed,
talk about the skewed bilateral.
We don't know how this is going to be addressed, because $170 billion is half your current account deficit today. So that's another problem. And therefore, in addressing, tomorrow we will know at Shanghai, when the business and industry meet, from what I understand is
some major agreements are going to be signed there.
$20 billion was committed when he came last time.
Right.
$10 billion is this year's commitment. The Economic Times today says that $35 billion, you will get some account for $35 billion tomorrow.
In Shanghai. Would you agree with that?
When you talk about trade deficit,
yes.
If you look at Saudi Arabia and India's trade, we got a huge trade deficit because we import oil and export nothing to them. What do we export to China? Our biggest export last year was cotton. Second biggest was iron ore and slag. So, we are a primary commodity exporter. China exports value-added manufactured goods. All the 10 top items are manufactured items. So, it underscores the difference in our economies and the level of growth.
And we cannot expect that balance to be, to strike a balance in any...
If you are in the WTO, you are in the international trade...
If you get access to their markets, this is...
this is again another thing.
Make in India...
What is the access you're going to get? So I think
anyway, Mohan, please don't talk among yourselves. No, but the fact remains that there has been that this issue has been addressed in the joint statement. How that skewed balance
can be addressed. It has to be addressed, and that address will come when we build up manufacturing capacities in India and export things to China.
Okay, Atul, very quickly.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we are looking at tomorrow. What is expected tomorrow? Is tomorrow the big day as far as economic investments and things are concerned?
I think so. I mean, from the Chinese side, they're at a stage of transforming their own economy, and they see huge potential for their own self-interest in India. And there has been enormous interest from the business community, not from the big honchos, but if you go to provinces, Sichuan, Gansu, I mean, they are looking big time into India. And tomorrow you're going to have who's who of Chinese business over there, like Jack Ma and, Tencent's guys, Xiaomi, and that level of people. So my own hunch is, though I've still not got any insight exactly what might happen, people are being very tight-lipped on this, but my own hunch is that we're going to have some big ticket breakthroughs tomorrow on the business side.
Okay, Siddharth, very quickly, would you? I mean, the Chinese have termed President Xi's visit to India in September last year as a landmark visit. Would you say that this visit of Prime Minister Modi to China will be seen as a landmark visit in the coming days and weeks or months?
I think the jury's out. I think it has the potential to be transformative because the visit comes at a time when India is doubling down on its strategic partnership with the United States. India is more concerned about China's rise than it has been in the past and is willing to associate more closely with countries that China has, strategic aversion to or has suspicions about, like Australia, like Japan, like the United States. So in that light, the fact that Modi has clearly been able to make a success of his visit and pave the way or open the door for the deepening of bilateral relations, I think is a significant step forward. Okay. How things have to change on the economic front, I think, will be decisive.
Okay.
$10 billion was mentioned last year. If the two sides can put concrete projects in, I think that would be a game changer.
Okay, very quickly.
One significant point we all miss is who is China's biggest trading partner? Who is China's biggest investor? Japan. And the country which has the highest, most acrimony. Second biggest economic partner is the United States. The Chinese have understood this game well. They know how to de-link the politics and the economics of it. And we should attempt to de-link our politics from our economics.
Okay, I think on that note, we need to end. De-link politics from economics is what is the thing. And also, maybe this visit will be seen in coming days as something very, very significant which has happened in the relations between the two countries. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend.